I think you're a really thoughtful person. You ask me questions I don't feel comfortable talking about on YouTube. So I have to.
Welcome to another epic conversation. I'm very excited for this, and let's jump right in.
I am so glad I found your channel, and I have so many questions because the world kind of drives me crazy right now. And I feel like little nuggets of wisdom and real history and real truth are just hidden in your channel. And I would love to know everything about you, obviously, because you're fascinating, your life is fascinating. But some questions that have been rolling around in my mind have been, when the boomers were at the age that millennials are now, what did they think of the silent generation and the greatest generation?
We didn't think. We were baby boomers. We were, and I'm an old baby boomer. We were all about the possibilities that they were saying we couldn't do. And everything that they, our parents, the church leaders, the school leaders, the political leaders, said we couldn't do, we were going to do. It was as simple as that. We grew up with and were raised with, among other values, two values. One was America is the home of the brave and the home of the free. And we're free. And freedom meant a lot to us. You're not letting us be free. You're stopping us in every which way. And the way you're treating black people, disgusting. And you're dealing with our clothing and you're telling us we can't do this? No, we're not going to do what you say.
I was raised with people who were raised by people who went through the Depression, who saved every single rubber band on the doorknobs and saved every little scrap of something because it might be useful. How much did that Depression mentality affect you?
Now, I had a dad who was an artist in New York City, just barely making a living. An introvert, very shy in a fast culture of New York. And he had 100 shirts in his drawer in case of an emergency, so he would always have a clean shirt to go to work. But I never heard the Depression mentioned by my dad. My dad, we made no money, we had no money, and we didn't think we needed money, my parents. My mom was an immigrant from Ukraine. America to her was beyond glorious. She didn't care about depression. World War II seemed pretty interesting to her. Everybody got together and tried to help one another. So my parents were overjoyed to be in America, overjoyed to be in the lower middle class. And sure, we remembered the Depression, but more, my God, we had a refrigerator. We had a car. We had heat. We had water with a silver nozzle. We had 2 showers. We had school that you could walk to with thousands of other kids. You have no idea what that's like. 5,000 kids in my school. So the Depression was long past. Like 9/11 for my kids, my younger kids, they barely know it, but yeah, a building came down. It's fascinating how history just of the previous generation sort of matters. Going back 2 generations, not so much.
That is fascinating. I am curious, not just to you, but to your whole generation. Did your teachers, leaders, whatever, older people, did they talk badly about your generation? Because I feel like there's just this continual cycle of talking badly about the generation that comes after, kind of cursing them, you know?
Culturally, rock and roll and all that other stuff that we grew up with did disparage the older generation. But, you know, like never trust anybody over 30, Bob Dylan. But I would say in general, we didn't spend much time paying attention to the older generation because they came from what appeared to us to be a completely different culture. So different. I mean, the things they thought about, the things they cared about. And there was one serious difficulty for many of the baby boom generation, which is we were being told things by parents, by teachers, by the school, and by the political system that were quite clearly wrong. We were not the land of the free. We could see it. Parents said we should all be happy and just stay quiet, and they weren't happy. Many were on Valium. They told us we shouldn't have sex until we get married. It didn't look like that's what they did. And I'm not sure they did. They lied. The system was lying. Politically horrific lies.
I wish I had like 3 weeks to just leave everyone to just leave me alone so that I could watch all of your videos, because I'm seriously seeking. It's driving me crazy. Why the heck is the world the way it is right now? Why are Christians so obsessed with not wearing masks and fighting for their right to worship? Like, can't you do that at home? Why are people so obsessed with freedom? Like, okay, maybe I want to. If I could watch some of your videos, I can learn more about this obsession with the thought that all aspects of socialism are the absolute devil and need to go back to hell where they belong. Like, I live in a country that is not completely socialistic, but a good chunk of it is, and it freaking works.
An opinion about that. Be interested to know your opinion about my opinion. My opinion is that we are in a very new space. The world of social media is like the world of the book. When the book came out, when Gutenberg published the Bible, there were a lot of religious folks who felt that other people should not learn to read, that it was the purview of the priests to read, not other people. And the same thing has happened with every major media change. Kids came over to my house to watch TV because their parents wouldn't let them. It was bad. Television would destroy your mind, it was bad. And we have one now bigger than any one we've ever had, which is humans tend to search for something and like something that agrees with them or makes them feel good. And social media is a new environment that may take us generations to learn how to deal with. I personally think it's very sad that Christians, some Christians, have adopted memes that were aimed at them. For example, homosexuality. That was not a meme in 1950. Christians didn't talk about that. That wasn't a major issue in their lives. Some guy, I think it was in New Hampshire, starts publishing this as a Christian issue, and it becomes a major Christian issue for some Christians in the United States. I am a born Jew, but I am a Jesus believer. And I would have been with Jesus had I been alive at the time when he was alive. I would have been one of the Jews, he was a rabbi, to go with him. So I am really torn, but I feel I can't teach people about social media. It's so complicated that we all have to become aware of one thing, that our mind seeks out something that agrees with it. It likes that. No stress there. So, gee, somebody says something, yeah, I kind of like that. I believe that. There's no reality anymore to the news. I don't know that there ever was, but there was more than there is now. When I lived on the farm and I saw my community, and that was pretty much it. I could deal with that. I could learn who were the bad people, who were the good people, who were the predators, who were nice to animals. What's the world now? So I believe that's what's going on, and it's really complicated and really disturbing, and so far not working very well.
I have this thought that history is in the eye of the beholder. You know, who holds the... So, okay, for example, rock and roll. Oh, it was so terrible. White and black people mixing. Oh, this is the beginning of the end. And then another side, oh, black and white people mixing. This is a new beginning. It's all just about whose side of history you're talking about. And so I don't know how to phrase this into a question.
I think you're talking about fear. And I think fear is a major driver here. If you are afraid, you're going to not like whatever you see. These are realities of human beings. I mean, the fact that I'm not afraid of much, I consider to be such a blessing. I have not lived my life in fear. And the fears that I had in my young life, which were all about me, not the world around me, I overcame by combating them. I was afraid to travel, so I traveled. I was afraid of violence. I really was. I never hit anybody, and I've never been hit by anybody, ever. I was afraid of it. And there's one fear I have that I have not overcome. Here I am, 79 and a half. Can't get rid of it. Doctors, medicine, that it's going to get me. that out there is this virus that's going to get scares the living daylight out of me. Can't get rid of it. It's a phobia. But the fear that's driving so many right now, we have real fear. What if the economy goes? What if global warming, which could, glaciers from your place fall into our place and cause our cities to drown? What about the political situation? Both sides feel the other side will destroy the country. Maybe that's true. So much. No more marriage anymore, say the Christians. It's not like it used to be. They remember a thing that very few of them actually lived in. Otherwise, they wouldn't be quite so confident about the 1950s. I lived through the 1950s in suburbia, in a white community of lower middle class. I saw a lot of stuff growing up as a kid, never gets talked about by people reflecting on the 1950s, make America great again.
Did you watch Happy Days in the 1970s and 80s? How about that idealized version of the 50s?
There's a segment of my audience who hates Hollywood and blames on Hollywood where we're at. What a ridiculous idea. Hollywood is merely reflecting dream images of what people are thinking. Its business is not to create something you don't think, but to give you something you already think and make it more for you. It was silly. Had nothing to do with my life. The people who watched it and liked it wanted that. They wanted that fantasy moment of girl is girl, boy is boy, man is man, woman is woman, dog is dog, refrigerator opens and something comes out. I'm a documentary guy. I think there's great drama like you do in ordinary people like you are and like I am. We're ordinary people. I want to be an ordinary person. I wish someone would give me $10 million so that I could make YouTube videos forever, A, and B, so that I could prove to that someone that I'm going to be an ordinary person, give me $10 million or not. It ain't going to change my life at all. And I live here in Silicon Valley, or near it, and some of the guys I've known who have made hundreds of millions of dollars and even billions of dollars, hard to believe, some of them have radically changed, and some of them haven't changed at all. They're still essentially living middle class. Why? Because they believe in the middle class. They believe in the working class, and they're not going to change their lives because of the money they have. Fascinating.
That is fascinating.
What would you say to Christians who right now feel in the election in the United States that if President Trump doesn't win again, Christianity is dead. Western civilization is dead. So this group of Christians has connected a basically immoral, amoral man, regardless of whether you support him. Morality is not his thing. Something that I identify at the core. It is hard for me, impossible for me, actually, to support somebody who I do not respect. But for these Christians, they don't respect him necessarily, and they certainly don't respect his values, but they support him. Can you explain that, how you see it?
Dang, these are good questions. What are you, a professional? I would say, did you read your Bible? Do you read this thing? How many times does it say do not fear? Like, do not place the entire weight of Jesus on the cross to one man being in office or not. You should be ashamed to have so much fear.
I went to Israel with my family for my son's 13th year. I had had a bar mitzvah when I was a boy, which meant absolutely nothing to me. It was all baloney, speaking in some other language with the rabbi telling you what to do. When my son reached 13, I told him that. I said, we're not going to do that. We're going to do two things I'm going to do for you as your dad. One, I'm going to hold a minyan, 10 good men who come together, my friends, to share with you what it is like to be 13 and becoming a man. What an experience. 5 hours of brilliant men sharing with my 13-year-old and dialoguing with him about experiences in their lives as teenagers and how they learned to be good men. The other thing I did was I went to Israel and I went to Jerusalem and I went to the old city and I took a tour from a Jewish man who takes Protestants and Catholics on tours of the 14 Stations of the Cross. It's one of my best films on my YouTube channel. Hardly watched. Maybe it's got 50,000 views. It's beautiful. And you're there at the places where these things occurred, walking right near where this occurred, maybe even on the same streets, reflecting on each of the stations and what happened along the way. And the greatness of the people around Jesus, particularly the women, the greatness of them, the wisdom of them, the tolerance in such a horrific situation is amazing. And I had something happen to me, and you, my viewers and your viewers, many, know that this happens. So I'm walking the 10 stations on that little road, and there's a little garage, and the door is open, and I just walk in, and there's nothing in the garage. And I look outside back on the Via Dolorosa, and I see a Christian carrying a cross and wearing the crown of thorns, carrying the cross, walking past me. I see a person, because hundreds of Christians do this a year on the Via Dolorosa. They walk Jesus's walk. And then I'm back in my house in California, and a woman comes for a job interview. And she walks in and she says, you know, I had the strangest dream. I'm standing in a garage and I'm looking out, and Jesus walks by with a cross. I said, describe the garage. She describes exactly what I saw. I'd never met this person. I'd never talked to this person. You know, these things happen. The mystery of what we don't know, but the clear connections that exist between us are overwhelming to me and take away fear. If I know so little and what I don't know is so great, it's what I'm seeing is this much of that much, and that much is greater than what I'm seeing. And what I'm seeing is pretty amazing.
Amen. There is so much. There are miracles. Like, don't put God into this box. God is not American. God is not white. Like, it's so much bigger. And the American dream, how does that match up to this? Like, yeah, there's so much more in here about welcoming in the people, the outcasts, and visiting people who are sick and in prison. There's so much more about justice for those who don't have it than there is about that. But it has to be legal. They have to have the right paperwork.
There would be no America without, in my view, Protestant liberal Christianity. The Jews would have fought with each other. The Catholics were too tied to Rome. But these libertarian, liberal thinking, freedom-based Christians created the country. And the American dream unquestionably was for every American. It didn't have immigrant, non-immigrant. We were all immigrants except for the Indians. And you know what? Maybe they were immigrants. There's real good information now that the earliest people here may have been 25 or 30,000 years old. They weren't Indians. Maybe the Indians weren't the first folk either, but I can't say that. That's not politically correct. What I can say is the American dream is glorious. It's so free and kind and accepting, and so much richness comes from it. Education got worse. We used to be number one in the world in education. We're not. Number one in the world in medicine. We're not. Number one in the world for our culture. We are. American, North American, USA culture. The world would grab it in a second if they could. And what makes it so great are non-single white England culture. Even the Irish made it better, and the Italians made it better, and the Swedes made it better, and all kinds of others, of course. And it can be really difficult. It is difficult for me. There are aspects of cultures within America I don't relate to. In some cases, I don't even see them as American. It's true. It's so tough to be an American. But it was tough in the 1920s, I guarantee you, when the many people tried to block immigrants. It was tough in the 1850s when they blocked the Irish, or the 1870s when they blocked the Italians. They were always people who felt we were the ones. Now you go away. We opened the door for ourselves. We came in. Now we're closing the door. You can't come in. And at some point that may have to be the case economically. But from an emotional point of view, give me your tired and your poor is about as strong
Mm.
a Jesus comment as an American could make.
As I'm hearing you talk about that, it's coming to mind that I just feel really lied to about almost everything, like literally. Like in school, Christopher Columbus was a hero. Slavery happened, but that's over now. Everything's cool. Civil rights movement. It happened. Let's move on. Let's go back to World War II because we look better in that story. You know, like we learned World War II again and again and again, but so much of truth and the fact that things still were pretty bad in a lot of ways, still are bad, obviously, or people wouldn't be so hurt and protesting and rioting because things never got addressed well enough in the first place. I don't know what to do with it. I guess I don't have a question, but those are my thoughts.
I think one of our responsibilities as YouTubers, you and me, is to share with our audiences the three-dimensionality of people. Nobody's perfect, we know that. And people have more than one side. Certainly the story of Christopher Columbus, which I've spent a fair amount of time on. I worked on a television special on him once. In a way is lots of bad stuff. In a way is lots of good stuff. And some of it's mixed. He got paid a lot of money. He came for the gold. He may have been a Jew. Shortly after the Inquisition, who was trying to keep alive with the queen. He didn't treat the natives like they were humans. It's true. He didn't have any understanding for that. But he definitely opened the space for later peoples who were running from restrictive societies, horribly restrictive societies, and came to this new world for freedom. It's mixed. Everybody's mixed. George Washington, we learned, I can't lie, I cut down the cherry tree. He's so much more than that. He's so complicated, George Washington. I'm going to do a video on George Washington.
Ooh.
I like that people are three-dimensional, that I'm three-dimensional, and that I can change. I can be going off in that direction. My wife just said something. That's a way better direction. I'm turning. Whoop, and I turn the ship. And I go another direction. In other words, I don't exist. There's no locked in concrete me. I'm alive. A living being. Therefore, I can be going this way, then that way. I can have two thoughts that don't connect. In fact, somebody said, I think it was Emerson, but it may have been Thoreau, that the sign of intelligence is a person who can tell another side of a story so well that the person who believes it agrees with that point of view. So well, he can speak the other side, not his side, but the other side. A lot of my friends who are anti-Trump, well, not just anti-Trump, they hate him. They couldn't say a single word that the Trumpians would agree with. And many Trumpians can't say a single word that the other side would agree with. This isn't good. This is not intelligent. This is not using our ability to be multi people. You and I could speak to each other for days. And if we had days, we might, but we don't. And my viewers, whom I've come to know very well because I read at least 1,000 comments a day, I comment back to at least 150 a day. I spend hours on it because that is my respect for the people who take the time to watch my videos and hear me. And I try not to waste their time. So I'm going to say we've talked enough. And I'm going to say to you that this video is owned by the both of us. I'm going to make my version and ask you for little bits to put into it. And I want you to make your version and put little bits into it. You can add your own comments or whatever you choose to add.
I am overwhelmed. Thank you so much. I'm so excited about this.
I think you're a really thoughtful person. You ask me questions I don't feel comfortable talking about on YouTube. So
So a huge thank you to the epic David Hoffman for doing this with me. Thank you for watching this and spending this time with us. He edited his own version of our interview conversation on his channel, and I will link that in the description. And his channel is amazing, not just because I'm now a guest on it. I don't usually say this, but I do want to say it in this place because darn it, this video deserves a like. Yeah, you should send this video to anybody who likes really cool people. And now I will say hugs and nostrils of death.